Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the Darkin Blade, the world ender reborn in Runeterra Naruto x Ahri, League of Legends. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Blade Awakens Pain. That was the first sensation Naruto experienced, searing, all-consuming pain that seemed to pull at every fiber of his being. His consciousness felt scattered, like fragments trying to piece themselves back together. "Where am I?" He tried to speak, but no sound came out. He couldn't feel his mouth, his limbs, nothing made sense. The last thing he remembered was the Valley of the End. Sasuke. Their final battle. The explosion of chakra as their Rasengan and Chidori collided one last time. Then, darkness. Kurama. Naruto called out mentally, seeking the familiar presence of the nine-tailed fox. A deep, resonant growl answered him, but it felt wrong, distorted somehow. "Kit, something's happened to us. We're changed." Naruto tried to open his eyes, but the sensation was foreign. Instead of seeing through human eyes, his awareness seemed to expand outward from an object. He felt the cool ground beneath him. No, not beneath him. He was on the ground. Not standing on it, but lying on it. With tremendous effort, Naruto focused his consciousness, and slowly the world came into view, a strange, unfamiliar world. Trees unlike any in the land of fire stretched toward a purple-tinged sky. The air hummed with an energy that wasn't chakra but something else entirely. What the hell? Naruto tried to move but found himself immobile. Not paralyzed, something far stranger. He had no body to move. His consciousness seemed bound to an object, a massive sword embedded in the earth. The blade was enormous, curved and jagged with strange, pulsing red symbols etched along its surface. Each symbol throbbed with a heartbeat that felt connected to his own awareness. "Kurama, what's going on?" Naruto's panic rose as he realized his situation. "We died, Kit," the fox's voice came, weaker than Naruto had ever heard it. "Or at least, I think we did. But something pulled us here, across worlds. And now we're trapped." Before Naruto could process this information, he sensed movement nearby. His awareness expanded instinctively, and he saw, without eyes, a small group of people approaching cautiously through the underbrush. They wore strange clothing, like a mix of samurai armor and flowing robes, all in shades of green, red, and gold. "The scouts were right," one of them whispered, a man with a graying beard and hard eyes. "It's appeared again, the Darkin Blade." "Impossible," a younger woman replied, her hand hovering over the hilt of her sword. "The world ender was sealed away centuries ago." "Well, it's here now," the older man said grimly. "And we all know what happened the last time a Darkin weapon was found." Naruto tried to call out to them, to explain that he wasn't whatever they thought he was, but no sound emerged from the sword. "We should destroy it," another man suggested, drawing a bow from his back. "Fool! No mortal weapon can destroy a Darkin artifact. We need to inform the Kinku Order immediately. They'll know what to do." The woman stepped closer, and Naruto felt a strange hunger rise within him, not his own desire, but something ancient and terrible that resided in the blade alongside him. It wanted her blood, her life force, her very essence. "Stay back, Akali," the older man barked. "Don't touch it." The woman froze, then backed away slowly. "I felt it," she whispered. It's aware." "They always are," the old man said grimly. "And they wait for someone foolish enough to wield them." Naruto fought against the blade's bloodlust, pushing it down with all his willpower. "I'm not going to hurt anyone," he tried to project, but his thoughts remained trapped within the sword. "We'll set up a perimeter," the old man decided. "No one approaches until Master Shin arrives." As the group moved to secure the area, Naruto focused inward, searching for Kurama's presence. "Hey, Furball, got any ideas? Because I'm not spending eternity as a sword." The fox's energy stirred within their shared space. "This is ancient magic, Kit, older than the Sage of Six Paths himself. But every prison has a key. Care to be more specific?" Naruto would have rolled his eyes if he had any. "The sword hungers for a host, for blood and flesh to wear as its own. That's what I'm sensing. If someone were to try to wield you, they'd be possessed." Naruto felt sick at the thought. "No way. I'm not taking over someone else's body." "It may be the only way to free ourselves," Kurama growled. "But perhaps we can find another solution. Our chakra still exists, though it's been transformed by this world's energies." Naruto concentrated, feeling the strange new energy that flowed through the sword and, by extension, through him. It wasn't chakra, but it responded to his will similarly. Experimentally, he pushed a small amount outward. The symbols on the blade flared bright crimson, and the ground beneath the sword cracked slightly. The guards instantly went on alert. "It's activating," the woman called Akali shouted. "Everyone back." Naruto pulled the energy back immediately. "Okay, so I can affect the physical world. That's something." "Don't draw attention, Kit," Kurama warned. "Not until we understand more about our situation." Hours passed as Naruto remained embedded in the ground, the guards keeping a wary distance. He listened to their conversations, picking up fragments of information about this place called Ionia, and the Darkin weapons that had brought destruction centuries ago. "So I'm stuck in some ancient demon weapon," Naruto groused. "Just great." Night fell, bringing a strange silver moon that cast an eerie light over the forest clearing. Most of the guards had settled into shifts, with only 3 remaining actively on watch. That's when Naruto sensed them, silent shadows moving through the trees with lethal purpose. Before he could react, dark figures struck from multiple directions. The guards barely had time to shout before they were cut down, their blood soaking into the earth. Naruto felt the sword pulse eagerly at the spilled blood, drinking it in. The sensation sickened him, but he couldn't stop the blade's automatic reaction. 5 figures now stood in the clearing, dressed in dark armor with masks covering their faces. Red eyes glowed from behind those masks, not Sharingan, but something else entirely. "Master Zed was correct," the leader said, approaching the sword. "The Darkin has returned." "Careful, Kane," another warned. "You remember what happened to the last acolyte who touched such a weapon." The one called Kane laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. "That fool was weak. I am not." He reached out his hand toward the hilt. "Don't," Naruto tried to project. "Please don't touch me." But his warning went unheard. As Kane's fingers closed around the hilt, Naruto felt a jolt of connection, a pathway opening between his consciousness and the humans. The sword's hunger surged forward, seeking to devour Kane's identity and use his body as a vessel. Naruto fought against it with everything he had. "I won't let you take him," he shouted at the ancient consciousness lurking in the blade. For a brief moment, there was a 3-way struggle, Kane's will, Naruto's determination, and the blade's hunger all clashing together. Then, unexpectedly, Naruto felt Kurama's chakra surge. "Kit! Use my power," the fox growled. Naruto didn't hesitate. He grabbed onto Kurama's chakra and pushed outward with all his might, not to possess Kane, but to repel him. A massive explosion of red energy erupted from the sword, throwing Kane backward 20 feet. He crashed through several trees before coming to a stop, his chest smoking where he'd gripped the hilt. "What the hell?" one of the other shadow warriors gasped. Kane struggled to his feet, eyes wide with shock and something else, interest. "It rejected me," he said, sounding more fascinated than angry. "No Darkin has ever rejected a wielder before." "Let's take it to Master Zed," another suggested. "He'll know what to do." "Yes," Kane agreed, eyeing the sword with newfound respect. But we'll need to be careful. This one's different. One of the warriors produced a cloth woven with strange symbols and approached cautiously. Using it as a barrier, he managed to pull the sword from the earth without touching it directly. The blade was massive, nearly 6 feet long with a jagged, cruel edge. "Hurry," Cain ordered. The Kinku will have felt that energy burst. As they moved swiftly through the forest with Naruto in tow, he concentrated on maintaining his sense of self. The blade's hunger was constant, pushing at his consciousness, whispering promises of power if he would just give in and become one with it. "Not happening," Naruto told it firmly. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I don't give up who I am for anyone." The ancient presence in the sword seemed surprised by his resistance, then withdrew slightly, as if reassessing him. "Kit," Kurama spoke up. "I think I understand what's happened to us." "I'm all ears," Naruto replied, wishing he actually had ears. "When we died, our chakra, our souls, were pulled into this weapon. But it already contained another entity, this Darkin they keep mentioning. We're now sharing the same prison." "Great, a roommate from hell," Naruto would have grimaced if he could. "Any ideas on how to get unimprisoned?" "Working on it," Kurama growled. "But I think our best option right now is to learn more. These shadow warriors seem to know about Darkin weapons." "Yeah, but they don't exactly seem like the friendly type," Naruto observed as the group moved silently through the moonlit forest. After what felt like hours of travel, they arrived at what appeared to be an ancient temple complex, partially in ruins but clearly occupied. Dark banners bearing a red eye symbol hung from the walls, and more of the shadow warriors patrolled the perimeter. Naruto was carried into a central chamber where a tall figure waited. Unlike the others, he wore no mask, revealing a stern face with sharp features and calculating eyes. Red marks adorned his body, seeming to pulse with power. "Master Zed," Cain bowed, gesturing to the cloth-wrapped sword. "We found the Darkin as you predicted, but something is different about this one." Zed approached, his gaze intense as he studied the blade without touching it. "Unwrap it." When the cloth was removed, the symbols along the blade pulsed brightly, responding to Naruto's agitation. "Interesting," Zed murmured. "The energies are unlike any Darkin weapon I've encountered. It's as if..." He leaned closer, and Naruto felt the man's power probing at him, shadow magic, cold and insidious. "There are 2 spirits within," Zed announced, sounding surprised. "One is Darkin, yes, but the other, something else entirely. Something I've never felt before. It rejected me when I tried to wield it," Cain explained, showing the burn on his palm. A thin smile crossed Zed's face. "Perhaps it's waiting for a stronger host." His eyes gleamed with ambition. "Prepare the binding chamber. If this truly is Aatrox, the world ender, then its power could finally give us the edge we need against Noxus." "And the Kinku," Cain added with a cruel smile. "Yes," Zed agreed. "Shen and his followers won't be able to stand against us once we harness the Darkin's power." As Naruto was carried deeper into the temple complex, he focused on gathering information. These shadow warriors, the Order of Shadow, he heard them call themselves, were clearly planning to use him as a weapon in some conflict. And whoever this Aatrox was, it seemed to be the name of the Darkin entity sharing the blade with him. "Kurama," Naruto called mentally. "I think we need to get out of here before they figure out how to control us." "Agreed," the fox replied. "But we need a body, Kit. As much as I hate to say it, we might need to temporarily take a host." "No way," Naruto insisted. "There has to be another option." "Well, think fast," Kurama growled. "Because they're preparing some kind of ritual, and I don't think we're going to like it." The shadow warriors had brought the sword to a circular chamber deep underground. Strange runes covered the walls, floor, and ceiling, pulsing with dark energy. In the center was a stone altar where they placed the blade. Zed entered, now wearing ceremonial armor adorned with more of the red eye symbols. "Begin the ritual," he commanded. I will be the one to tame this Darkin. Kane's face showed momentary disappointment before he nodded and took his position. 6 warriors formed a circle around the altar and began chanting in a language Naruto didn't understand. The runes on the walls activated, sending tendrils of shadow energy toward the sword. Naruto felt them wrapping around his consciousness, probing, seeking to bind him to Zed's will. No. Naruto fought back, pushing with his own energy. Beside him, he felt the ancient Darkin presence stirring, also resisting the binding. Interesting, Zed remarked, watching the sword pulse and fight against the shadows. It has a strong will. But all wills break eventually. He stepped forward, placing his hands on either side of the blade without touching it. Dark energy flowed from his palms, reinforcing the binding spell. Naruto felt the pressure increasing, the shadow magic trying to suppress his consciousness and make him subservient. In desperation, he reached for Kurama's power. Together, Kit, the fox growled. Like old times. Their merged chakra exploded outward, shattering the shadow bindings and sending a shockwave through the chamber. Several of the acolytes were thrown against the walls, and even Zed staggered back, his eyes wide with surprise. What power, he exclaimed, a hungry look on his face. This is indeed no ordinary Darkin. Before he could approach again, a new sound reached them, shouting from above, the clash of weapons. Master Zed. A wounded warrior stumbled into the chamber. We're under attack. The Kinku found us, and they've brought something else with them. Something with multiple tails. Zed's expression hardened. Secure the Darkin. Kane, with me. As most of the shadow warriors rushed to defend their temple, Naruto sensed an opportunity. With Kurama's power still flowing through him, he focused on the sword itself, trying to move it through sheer force of will. The massive blade trembled, then slowly rose from the altar, hovering in midair. The few remaining acolytes backed away in terror. The Darkin is awakening, one cried. Run! Naruto focused harder, making the sword float toward the chamber exit. It was exhausting, moving the physical object with only his willpower and chakra, but he managed to guide the blade through the corridors toward the sounds of battle. What he saw when he reached the temple's main hall was chaos. Shadow warriors clashed with differently dressed fighters, the Kinku, Naruto presumed. But what caught his attention was a figure darting between combatants with inhuman grace. She was beautiful in a feral, dangerous way, a woman with white fox ears protruding from her long black hair and 9 white tails flowing behind her. Her eyes glowed with an ethereal blue light as she threw orbs of matching energy at her enemies. Kurama, Naruto whispered. Are you seeing this? Yes, the fox sounded as stunned as Naruto felt. Another 9 tails, but different. Her energy feels familiar yet foreign. The fox woman suddenly turned, sensing something. Her glowing eyes locked onto the floating sword, widening in surprise. She dispatched her current opponent with a quick blast of energy, then approached cautiously. What are you? She asked, speaking directly to the blade. I can sense, a fox spirit. She can sense us. Naruto exclaimed to Kurama. Try to communicate, the fox urged. Naruto concentrated, making the symbols on the blade pulse in patterns, trying to form words. It was clumsy, but he managed to flash, friend. The fox woman tilted her head, ears twitching. Friend, she repeated skeptically. A friendly Darkin? That's a first. A shadow warrior lunged at her from behind, but without even looking, she lashed out with one of her tails, sending him flying across the room. If you're really friendly, she continued, prove it. Help us stop Zed. He's trying to harness dark powers that will destroy the balance of Ionia. Naruto didn't fully understand the conflict, but he recognized an ally when he saw one. He turned the blade, scanning the battle until he spotted Zed and Kane fighting against what appeared to be the Kinku leaders. With a surge of chakra, Naruto propelled the sword forward like a missile. It struck the ground between Zed and his opponents, embedding itself with such force that the stone floor cracked. Then, drawing on more of Kurama's power, Naruto sent a pulse of red energy outward, pushing back the shadow warriors but carefully avoiding the Kinku fighters. The fox woman let out a surprised laugh. Well, that's certainly different. Zed recovered quickly, his eyes narrowing at the sword. So, you choose sides already, Darkin? Your kind usually aren't so selective. He formed a series of hand signs, not unlike ninja jutsu, and shadow clones of himself appeared around the room. No matter. What can a masterless blade do? Naruto had no idea what a masterless blade could do, but he knew exactly what Naruto Uzumaki could do. Focusing his chakra, he created an effect similar to his Rasengan around the sword, making it spin rapidly as it hovered above the ground. What the? Zed barely had time to dodge as Naruto launched himself at the Shadow Master, blade spinning like a deadly drill. The battle intensified as Naruto tried to coordinate with his new allies while fighting off Zed's shadows. It was strange fighting as a sword rather than with a human body, but he was adapting quickly. The fox woman seemed to understand his intentions intuitively, moving in sync with his attacks as if they'd fought together before. I am Ahri, she called to the blade during a brief pause in the fighting. And you're the strangest thing I've ever encountered, which is saying something. Naruto wished he could properly introduce himself. Instead, he pulsed his energy in a way he hoped conveyed gratitude. Suddenly, Zed appeared behind Ahri, shadows swirling around his arm formed into a blade. Die, Bastaya. Without thinking, Naruto flung himself between them. Zed's shadow blade struck the Darkin sword with a clang that resonated throughout the temple. A surge of power exploded from the point of contact, throwing Zed backward through a stone pillar. Nice save, Ahri said, giving the sword an appreciative look. You're definitely not like the other Darkin I've heard about. The battle was turning in their favor. The Kinku fighters had gained the upper hand against most of the shadow acolytes, and Zed himself looked genuinely concerned for the first time. Retreat, he commanded his followers. This isn't over. His gaze locked on the floating sword. I will uncover your secrets, Darkin, and I will master you. Shadow energy swirled around him and Kane, and they vanished into darkness along with their surviving followers. As the dust settled, the Kinku fighters gathered, eyeing the floating sword with suspicion despite its help. What do we do with it? One asked. It's still a Darkin weapon. A masked man stepped forward, clearly their leader. It helped us. That's unprecedented. It's communicating somehow, Ahri added. And it has fox energy similar to my own. The masked man, Shen, Naruto guessed from the earlier conversations, approached the sword cautiously. If it truly is Aatrox, the world ender, then no matter its current behavior, it cannot be allowed freedom. The risk is too great. Naruto felt panic rising. After helping them, were they going to imprison him anyway? Ahri stepped between Shen and the sword. It saved my life. At least let me try to communicate with it properly before you lock it away forever. Shen hesitated, then nodded. You have until dawn. But it cannot leave this temple, and you must be careful, Ahri. Darkin are masters of deception. As the Kinku fighters secured the temple and tended to their wounded, Ahri led the floating sword to a small meditation chamber away from the others. So, she said, sitting cross-legged before the blade. Let's figure out how to talk, shall we? Naruto pulsed his energy gratefully. Finally, someone willing to listen. Ahri reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small, glowing orb. This is an essence capture charm. I normally use it to, well, take memories from humans. She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. But maybe it can help bridge our communication. She held the orb up to the blade. Focus your thoughts into it. I'm not sure this will work with a Darkin, but it's worth a try. Naruto concentrated, pushing his thoughts toward the glowing orb. To his surprise, the orb began to change color, shifting from blue to a purplish red as it absorbed his energy. "That's interesting," Ahri murmured, watching the transformation. When she touched the orb again, her eyes widened. I can hear you. Not clearly, but impressions, feelings. My name is Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto projected as clearly as he could. "I'm not this Aatrox or Darkin thing everyone keeps talking about." Ahri frowned in concentration. "Naruto, that's your name. And you're not Darkin. But that's impossible. This is clearly a Darkin weapon." "I'm trapped in it," Naruto tried to explain. "I died in my world and somehow ended up here. There's something else in here too, the real Darkin, I think, but it's not in control." "I am." Ahri looked skeptical. "That's hard to believe. But I can sense something different about you." Her fox ears twitched. "There's definitely a fox spirit of some kind in there. Powerful, ancient. That's Kurama." Naruto would have grinned if he could. "He's been with me since I was born." "Two souls in a Darkin weapon," Ahri mused. "No wonder you're different." She leaned closer, studying the pulsing symbols. "So you're Naruto, and your fox spirit is Kurama. And you're from another world?" "Yes. I was a ninja from Konohagakure. I died fighting my best friend, or I thought I died. Next thing I know, I'm a sword stuck in the ground with people calling me a world-ending demon." A small smile played on Ahri's lips. "Well, you wouldn't be the first otherworldly visitor to Runeterra, though your arrival method is certainly unique." She sat back, her 9 tails swaying thoughtfully. "The Kinku won't believe this. They'll want to seal you away regardless. Darkin weapons have brought too much destruction to Ionia in the past." "Then help me escape," Naruto pleaded. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to figure out how to get back to normal, or at least get a body again." Ahri was quiet for a long moment, her glowing eyes studying the blade. "I should turn you over to them," she finally said. "It would be the responsible thing to do." The sword's energy dimmed slightly in disappointment. "But," she continued with a mischievous smile, "I've never been particularly good at doing the responsible thing." She stood up, straightening her outfit. "If I help you escape, you have to promise not to go on any world-ending rampages, okay?" Naruto pulsed his energy excitedly. "Promise. No world-ending, no rampages, nothing like that." "Good," Ahri nodded. "Because I'd have to stop you, and that would make this budding friendship awkward." She glanced toward the door. "We'll need to wait until most of them are asleep." Shun never fully sleeps, but even he gets distracted sometimes. True to her word, Ahri helped Naruto escape the temple a few hours later, creating a distraction by collapsing part of the already damaged structure. In the confusion, she slipped away with the floating sword, moving swiftly through the moonlit forest. "We need to get far away from here before dawn," she explained as they traveled. "The Kinku are excellent trackers, and they won't be happy that I helped you escape." Naruto focused on keeping up with her, the massive sword floating behind her as she darted through the trees. It was strange seeing the world from this perspective, no body, just awareness centered on an object moving through space. "So why did you help me?" he asked through the essence orb, which Ahri had kept to maintain their communication. She glanced back at the sword, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Several reasons. First, you helped us against Zed when you didn't have to. Second, I sensed something in you that resonated with me, something about being caught between worlds." Her tail swished as she jumped over a fallen log. "And third, I was curious. 9-tailed fox spirits aren't exactly common, even in Ionia. I wanted to know more about this Kurama inside you." "Kurama's been with me my whole life," Naruto explained. "He was sealed inside me when I was a baby. We used to hate each other, but eventually became partners." "Sealed inside you?" Ahri raised an eyebrow. In my case, the fox spirit is what I am, part of my Vastayan heritage. Though I'm not a pure Vastaya anymore, long story. They continued through the night, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the temple. Ahri explained more about Ionia, the conflict with Noxus, and the mysterious nature of the Darkin weapons. So these Darkin were some kind of ancient god warriors who got corrupted and turned into weapons? Naruto asked, trying to make sense of it all. That's the simplified version, Ahri confirmed. They were ascended beings who fought in the Shuriman Wars thousands of years ago. When Shurima fell, they became corrupted and eventually turned on each other and the world. They were finally defeated and sealed into their weapons. If freed, they possess anyone who touches them and use their bodies to continue their destruction. Great, Naruto would have sighed if he could. So I'm stuck in a weapon containing an ancient evil god warrior. Pretty much, Ahri said cheerfully. Though for an ancient evil god warrior, you seem pretty nice. I told you, I'm not the Darkin. I'm just, sharing space with it, I guess. Which brings up an interesting question, Ahri said, slowing her pace as they reached a small stream. Where is the Darkin consciousness? If this is truly Aatrox, the world ender, his will should be overwhelming yours. Naruto focused inward, sensing the ancient presence lurking deep within the blade. It was there, watching, waiting, but subdued somehow. I think Kurama's keeping it suppressed, Naruto realized. His chakra is forming a barrier between me and it. Impressive, Ahri said, kneeling by the stream to drink. Your Kurama must be incredibly powerful. He is, Naruto agreed proudly. He's the strongest of the tailed beasts. As they rested briefly by the stream, Naruto felt a sudden surge from within the blade, the Darkin consciousness pushing against Kurama's barrier. Something's happening, he warned Ahri. The symbols on the sword began glowing brighter, pulsing with an angry red light. The blade trembled violently in the air. Naruto. Ahri stood quickly, backing away. What's going on? It's trying to take control. Naruto struggled against the Darkin's will. Kurama. Help me push it back. Inside the mental space they shared, Naruto could feel the ancient being's rage, centuries of hatred and pain concentrated into a single, overwhelming force. You dare cage me? The voice was like mountains crumbling, oceans boiling, pure, primal fury. I am Aatrox. The world ender. The god killer. Yeah, Naruto shot back, standing his ground in their shared mindscape. I've heard it all before from guys way scarier than you. I've faced the Ten Tails, pal. You don't impress me. The Darkin's presence surged forward like a tsunami of rage, threatening to overwhelm Naruto's consciousness. Kit. Kurama growled, his massive form appearing beside Naruto. Together. They combined their chakra as they had done countless times before, forming a golden barrier against Aatrox's assault. The Darkin howled in frustration as his advance was halted. Impossible. No mortal has ever resisted me. Well, I'm not exactly normal, Naruto replied with the mental equivalent of a grin. And neither is my friend here. Kurama growled agreement, his 9 tails lashing behind him. In the physical world, Ahri watched with growing concern as the sword continued to shake violently, its symbols flashing between crimson and gold as the internal struggle continued. Naruto, she called, uncertain how to help. Don't let it take control. Her voice reached Naruto through the chaos, giving him an anchor to focus on. With renewed determination, he pushed back against Aatrox's presence. Listen up, he shouted at the ancient entity. I don't want to fight you. We're stuck together in this thing, so we might as well try to get along. Get along. Aatrox's laughter was like shattering glass. I am destruction incarnate. I exist only to end this cruel world that imprisoned me. Yeah, and how's that working out for you? Naruto countered. You've been stuck in this sword for how long? Centuries. Maybe it's time for a new approach. The Darkin's assault faltered slightly, confusion rippling through his rage. Look, Naruto continued, sensing an opening. I get it. Being trapped sucks. Trust me, I know what it's like to be sealed away and hated for something you can't control. He glanced at Kurama, remembering their shared past. But destroying everything won't free you. It'll just continue the cycle. You know nothing of my suffering. Maybe not, Naruto admitted. But I know about finding another way. About breaking cycles of hatred. And right now, we need each other. I need a body, and you need, well, something other than eternal imprisonment. The Darkin's presence withdrew slightly, still radiating fury but also, curiosity. Speak plainly, interloper. What do you propose? A truce, Naruto said simply. I'm not giving you control, but I'll help find a way to improve our situation, a way that doesn't involve possessing innocent people or destroying the world. There was a long silence as Aatrox considered this unprecedented offer. Finally, his voice came again, still thunderous but slightly less rage-filled. A temporary arrangement, then. I will observe your methods, Naruto Uzumaki. But know this, if you fail, I will reclaim what is mine. Fair enough, Naruto agreed. But I don't fail. That's my ninja way. In the physical world, the sword gradually stopped shaking, its symbols settling into a steady golden red pulse. Ahri approached cautiously. Naruto. Are you still, you? Yeah, he projected through the essence orb. We've reached an understanding. For now. You negotiated with a Darkin? Ahri looked impressed. That's never happened before, as far as I know. Let's just say I have experience dealing with stubborn, powerful entities with anger issues, Naruto replied, feeling Kurama's indignant huff within him. Dawn was breaking over the eastern hills, painting the forest in golden light. Ahri looked around, getting her bearings. We should keep moving. There's a place not far from here, a sacred grove where the spirit energy is strong. It might help us figure out more about your situation. As they journeyed through the awakening forest, Naruto felt strangely at peace despite his bizarre circumstances. Being a sword wasn't ideal, but at least he had allies, Kurama, his eternal partner, Ahri, his new friend, and even Aatrox, his reluctant co-tenant. Hey, Ahri, he projected. Thanks for believing me. Not many would have taken a talking sword at its word. She glanced back, a smile playing on her lips. Well, when you've lived a life as strange as mine, you learn to keep an open mind. Her 9 tails swished playfully. Besides, one 9-tailed fox can sense another. There's a connection there I can't ignore. In my world, Kurama was one of 9-tailed beasts, all siblings created from the same source. Fascinating, Ahri's eyes lit up with genuine interest. In Runeterra, Bastia like me were born from humans who adapted to wild magic through ancient rituals. We're not quite human anymore, but not fully spirit either. Sounds like we both know what it's like to be caught between worlds, Naruto observed. Ahri nodded, her expression turning momentarily melancholic. It can be lonely. Before Naruto could respond, a new sound reached them, the rhythmic march of armored feet moving through the forest. Ahri immediately tensed, her ears swiveling to track the noise. Noxians, she whispered, pulling the sword behind a large tree. A patrol, by the sound of it. At least a dozen. Who are the Noxians? Naruto asked quietly. An empire from across the sea. They've been invading Ionia for years, taking our resources, destroying our lands. Ahri's eyes hardened. They're brutal, efficient, and believe might makes right. She peered around the tree, confirming her suspicions as the patrol came into view, soldiers in dark armor with crimson capes, moving with military precision through the forest. We should avoid them, she whispered. Noxians have a particular interest in magical artifacts. If they discover a Darkin weapon. Say no more, Naruto agreed. Stealth mode it is. They began to edge away from the patrol, Ahri moving silently through the underbrush with Naruto floating close behind. They had almost cleared the area when disaster struck. The essence orb they were using to communicate slipped from Ahri's pouch, hitting a rock with a soft but distinct chime. Instantly, the patrol stopped. What was that? The leader demanded, raising a closed fist to halt his men. Probably just a forest spirit, one soldier suggested nervously. This place is crawling with them. Or a Vastaean spy, the leader countered. Spread out and search the area. Remember, the Grand General wants any magical artifacts or creatures captured intact. Ahri mouthed a silent curse. We're going to have to fight, she whispered to Naruto. These aren't the type to give up a hunt. I'm ready, Naruto assured her, feeling a surge of anticipation. Fighting as a sword would be new, but he'd never back down from a challenge. Ahri nodded, then suddenly stepped into a small clearing, facing the approaching Noxians with a confident smile. Her 9 tails spread out behind her in an impressive display, and her hands began to glow with ethereal blue energy. Looking for something, boys? She called out, her voice deceptively sweet. The patrol immediately formed a defensive line, weapons raised. The leader, a scarred man with a captain's insignia, stepped forward. A 9-tailed Vastaia, he said, his voice cold with calculation. Rare. The Grand General will be pleased. He gestured to his men. Take her alive if possible. Ahri's smile turned predatory. You're welcome to try. As the soldiers advanced, she launched into action, moving with inhuman grace. A sphere of blue energy formed in her palm, which she sent flying toward the nearest soldiers. When it struck, it seemed to pass through their armor, drawing out wisps of glowing essence. Now, Naruto, she called. Taking his cue, Naruto propelled himself forward, the massive blade spinning as it cut through the air. He wasn't trying to kill, just disable, so he focused on striking with the flat of the blade, sending soldiers flying backward with supernatural force. The Noxians were disciplined but clearly unprepared for a floating Darkin weapon working in concert with a Vastaean charmcaster. Their formation broke as Naruto and Ahri attacked from multiple directions. What sorcery is this? The captain shouted, swinging his sword at Naruto only to have it deflected by the larger blade's superior strength. Ahri darted behind him, her tails lashing out to trip him before she landed a palm strike to his back, sending another burst of charm magic through his armor. It's called teamwork, she quipped. You Noxians should try it sometime instead of just bullying the weak. Working together, they quickly neutralized most of the patrol. Naruto found that fighting as a sword had certain advantages. He couldn't be hurt, for one, and his movements were limited only by his chakra control and imagination. As the last few soldiers retreated, the captain struggled to his feet, blood trickling from his mouth. This isn't over, Fox Witch, he spat. Noxus will crush Ionia and all its magic beasts. Not today, Ahri replied coolly, forming another charm sphere in her hand. The captain's eyes widened as he noticed the hovering sword beside her. Wait, is that a Darkin weapon? Men! We must secure it for the Empire. The retreating soldiers hesitated, torn between self-preservation and the significant prize before them. I don't think so, Naruto projected, making the blade's symbols glow brighter in warning. Darkin serve no one, Ahri added, playing along. Especially not Noxian invaders. With a final glare of hatred, the captain signaled his men to fall back. The Grand General will hear of this, he warned before disappearing into the forest with his surviving soldiers. Ahri let out a breath as the sounds of their retreat faded. That was close. And now we have Noxians looking for us too. She gave the floating sword an appraising look. You fight well for someone who's never been a blade before. I adapt quickly, Naruto replied with pride. Though I really miss having hands. And feet. And, well, a body. Ahri laughed, the sound surprisingly musical. We'll figure something out. The sacred grove isn't far now. If anywhere in Ionia has answers about your condition, it's there. As they resumed their journey, Naruto felt Aatrox's presence stirring within the blade, observing their recent battle with interest. Curious, the Darkin's voice rumbled in their shared mindscape. You showed mercy to your enemies. That's generally how I operate, Naruto replied. Unless there's absolutely no other choice. Weakness, Aatrox declared, though with less conviction than before. Is it? Naruto challenged. Those soldiers will go back and spread word about a Darkin weapon that acts independently and allies with a Vastaya. That creates uncertainty, maybe even fear. Tactically, it's more valuable than just killing them. Aatrox was silent for a moment, considering this. Perhaps. But when they return with greater numbers? Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Naruto replied simply. One battle at a time. Outside, Ahri led them deeper into the forest. The trees here were ancient, their branches weaving together overhead to create a natural canopy. Motes of light, spirit energy, Ahri explained, floated through the air like luminescent snowflakes. We're entering one of Ionia's power nexuses, she said, her voice hushed with respect. The veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is thin here. Naruto could feel it, a vibration in the energy around them that resonated with his own chakra. It wasn't unlike the natural energy he'd learned to harness in sage mode, though it felt wilder, less structured. It feels alive, he observed. It is, Ahri confirmed. Ionia itself is alive in a way other lands aren't. The magic here flows like blood through veins, connecting everything. They entered a circular clearing where massive stone monoliths stood in a perfect ring around a small pool of crystalline water. The air here was thick with spirit energy, making the symbols on Naruto's blade glow brighter in response. This is the Grove of Remembrance, Ahri explained, approaching the pool. It's said that the waters here can reveal truths hidden even from oneself. She glanced at the hovering sword. It might help us understand more about your condition, and possibly how to reverse it. Worth a try, Naruto agreed eagerly. What do we do? First, we should rest, Ahri decided, sitting gracefully beside the pool. That fight with the Noxians drained more energy than I'd like to admit, and you must be exhausted too, maintaining control over the blade. Now that she mentioned it, Naruto did feel a strange fatigue, not physical, exactly, but a draining of his chakra reserves. Yeah, I guess I could use a break. I'll keep watch, Ahri offered. You, do whatever the equivalent of sleep is for a sword-bound ninja. Naruto would have smiled if he could. Thanks, Ahri. As Ahri settled against one of the monoliths, her tails curling around her, Naruto allowed his consciousness to withdraw slightly from active control of the blade. He didn't fully sleep, he wasn't sure if that was even possible in his current state, but he entered a meditative trance, conserving his energy. Within their shared mindscape, Kurama regarded him with ancient eyes. An interesting ally you found, Kit. She reminds me of you, Naruto replied. 9 tails and all. The fox snorted. She's nothing like me. I am a being of pure chakra, a fragment of the 10 tails itself. She's something else entirely. But you can't deny there's a connection, Naruto pressed. You felt it too. Kurama was silent for a moment. Perhaps. This world's energy is strange to us, yet somehow familiar. It resonates with our chakra in ways I don't fully understand. In the distance of their shared mindscape, Aatrox's presence loomed, observing their conversation without interfering. What do you make of our other roommate? Naruto asked, nodding toward the Darkin's presence. Ancient. Powerful. Consumed by rage and pain, Kurama assessed. Not unlike how I was before you changed me, Kit. There was a hint of fondness in the fox's grumble. Then maybe we can help him too, Naruto suggested. Kurama gave him a skeptical look. Don't get ahead of yourself. This Aatrox has been marinating in hatred for thousands of years. Change won't come easily, if at all. I like a challenge, Naruto replied with his characteristic optimism. Hours passed as Naruto rested and recharged. When he expanded his awareness again, he found Ahri still keeping vigil, though her posture had relaxed. Night had fallen, and the clearing was illuminated by the spirit motes and the reflection of stars in the pool. "Welcome back," she said, sensing his return to full awareness. "Feeling better?" "Much," Naruto confirmed, making the blade float upright. "So, what's next? How do we use this magical pool?" Ahri approached the water's edge, gesturing for Naruto to join her. "The ritual is simple but requires openness. You must lower your defenses and allow the waters to see your true nature." "That sounds intimate," Naruto observed. A small smile played on Ahri's lips. "It is. Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be." Ahri knelt beside the pool, her 9 tails spreading out behind her like a fan. She dipped her fingertips into the water, which immediately began to glow with the same ethereal blue as her eyes. "Bring the blade to the water," she instructed. Naruto lowered himself until the tip of the blade touched the surface of the pool. The effect was immediate, the water turned a swirling mixture of gold, red, and purple as it reacted to the multiple presences within the weapon. By the first lands, Ahri breathed, her eyes widening. "The waters confirm it, there are 3 distinct spirits within the blade." "3?" Naruto asked, confused. "Me, Kurama, and Aatrox, right?" "Yes, but..." Ahri leaned closer, studying the swirling patterns. "It's more complicated. You and Kurama are bound together as one yet separate, a perfect symbiosis. Aatrox is, contained, but powerful. The blade itself serves as a prison for all of you." The water began to form images, fleeting snapshots of memories. Naruto saw glimpses of his past in Konoha, battles alongside his friends, the 4th Ninja War. Then came visions of Kurama's long existence, followed by flashes of Aatrox's memories, a golden warrior fighting against impossible odds, his tragic transformation, centuries of bloodshed and despair. "So much pain," Ahri whispered, bearing witness to these memories. "But also great strength and determination." The water shifted again, forming a new image, a humanoid figure composed of golden energy, with 9 foxtails flowing behind it. "What's that?" Naruto asked. Ahri's expression was one of wonder. "I think, it's showing us a possibility. A potential form you could take if freed from the blade." "You mean I could get a body again?" Naruto's excitement surged, making the sword symbols pulse brightly. "Possibly," Ahri cautioned. "But it would be different from your original form. The waters show a fusion of your essence with Kurama's, shaped by the Darkin magic you've absorbed." "I don't care what I look like as long as I have arms and legs again," Naruto declared. "How do we make this happen?" The water rippled, forming a new series of images, ancient runes, a ritual circle, and a shadowy silhouette that Naruto couldn't quite make out. Ahri frowned in concentration. "It's showing requirements for a ritual of unbinding. We'd need specific materials, and help from someone versed in ancient magic. Any ideas who?" "A few," Ahri said thoughtfully. "There's a hermit who lives in the mountains to the north, a former Kinku monk who left the order to study forbidden techniques. If anyone knows about breaking magical bindings, it would be him." As they watched, the water showed one final image, a massive army marching under a banner bearing a sinister eye symbol. "That's Noxus," Ahri said grimly. "And that specific banner belongs to Swain, the Grand General himself." "What does it mean?" "It means we're not the only ones interested in you," she replied, standing up. "That Noxian patrol we fought, their report must have caught Swain's attention. If he's personally leading forces into Ionia, then we're in trouble," Naruto finished. "How soon?" Ahri studied the image carefully. "The waters show possibilities, not certainties. But based on the terrain they're crossing, I'd say we have 3 days, perhaps 4, before they reached this region. The water suddenly went still, returning to its crystalline clarity. The ritual was complete. "Well," Naruto said after a moment, "I guess we should head north to find this hermit monk, huh?" Ahri nodded, but her expression was troubled. "Yes, but we'll need to be careful. The path takes us through areas heavily patrolled by both Noxian forces and the Order of Shadow. Zed won't have given up on capturing you either." "Hey, we make a pretty good team," Naruto pointed out. "I think we can handle whatever comes our way." A smile returned to Ahri's face. "You're quite optimistic for someone trapped in an ancient doom weapon." "It's kind of my thing," Naruto replied cheerfully. "Always believe things will work out, no matter how bad they seem. It's gotten me through some pretty tough situations." "Well, I hope your optimism holds," Ahri said, gathering her belongings. "Because breaking a Darkin binding without releasing the Darkin itself, that's never been done before." As they prepared to leave the sacred grove, Naruto felt Aatrox's presence stirring again within the blade. "You seek to separate yourself from me," the Darkin accused, his voice rumbling through their shared mindscape. "Not exactly," Naruto replied carefully. "I'm looking for a way for both of us to exist without being trapped in this sword." "You want freedom too, right?" Freedom. The concept seemed almost foreign to Aatrox after so long. "What would you know of true freedom, mortal?" "More than you might think," Naruto answered. "I spent my life fighting for the freedom to choose my own path, to protect those precious to me. And I believe everyone deserves that chance, even you." There was a long silence as Aatrox contemplated this. "Your methods interest me, Naruto Uzumaki. I will continue to observe. For now." It wasn't exactly enthusiastic support, but Naruto would take it. At least the ancient entity wasn't actively fighting him anymore. Outside, Ahri was ready to depart. "We should move while it's still dark," she suggested. "Less chance of running into patrols." As they left the Grove of Remembrance behind, Naruto couldn't help feeling a sense of hope. He was still trapped in a bizarre situation, in a world not his own, but he had allies, a plan, and his unwavering determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead on their journey north, he would face them head-on. After all, that was his ninja way. "Hey, Ahri," he projected through the essence orb. "Thanks again for helping me. I know taking a chance on a talking sword isn't exactly the safest bet." She glanced back at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be judged by what you are rather than who you are." Her tail swished as she navigated through the dark forest. Besides, life was getting a little dull. A nine-tailed ninja from another world trapped in a Darkin weapon. That's the most interesting thing that's happened in Ionia for centuries. Naruto laughed internally. "Glad I could spice things up." "Just promise me one thing," Ahri said, her tone becoming serious for a moment. "If we do succeed in getting you a body, don't forget who helped you when you were just a talking sword." "Never," Naruto promised. "Wherever I end up, whatever happens, you'll always be my friend, Ahri." Her smile returned, bright and genuine. "Good. Because I have a feeling our adventure is just beginning." Together, they disappeared into the darkness of the Ionian forest, a nine-tailed Vastaya and a world-ending blade that contained the soul of a ninja who never gave up, an unlikely pair bound by fate and the promise of a new dawn. Chapter 2, Blood and Honor. The mountain air bit into Ahri's skin as she climbed over a fallen log. 3 days had passed since they'd left the sacred grove, heading north through increasingly rugged terrain. The forests had gradually given way to rocky foothills, the first sentinels of the mountain range that marked Ionia's northern reaches. "You doing okay back there, sword boy?" she called over her shoulder, a teasing lilt in her voice. The massive blade hovered several feet behind her, its crimson and gold markings pulsing in what Ahri had come to recognize as Naruto's equivalent of laughter. "Very funny," his voice projected through the essence orb she kept secured at her waist. "At least you've got legs to complain about being tired." "I'm just floating here, enjoying the view." And what view would that be? Ahri raised an eyebrow, her tail swishing playfully. If a sword could blush, Naruto's blade would have turned scarlet. The, mountains and stuff. The landscape. You know. Ahri laughed, the sound echoing through the quiet hills. Over their days of travel, they'd fallen into an easy companionship that surprised them both. There was something refreshing about Naruto's optimism and determination, qualities Ahri hadn't encountered often in her long, often solitary existence. We should reach the hermit's dwelling by tomorrow afternoon if we keep this pace, she said, pausing at the crest of a hill to get her bearings. Though I'm not sure what kind of welcome we'll receive. Koro isn't exactly known for his hospitality. He can't be worse than some of the hermits I've met, Naruto replied. My old sage teacher knocked me off a cliff on our first day of training. Ahri blinked in surprise. And you survived? Barely. Had to tap into Kurama's power for the first time to save myself. Speaking of your fox friend, he's been quiet lately. Ahri's ears twitched with curiosity. Does he not like me? It's not that, Naruto assured her. He's just cautious. Kurama spent centuries being used as a weapon, passed from one human vessel to another. Trust doesn't come easy for him. As if summoned by the mention of his name, a deeper, more guttural voice suddenly emanated from the sword. The Vastaya speaks as if I cannot hear her, Kurama growled, the blade's markings shifting to a deeper crimson. I've been conserving our chakra, not hiding. Ahri's eyes widened slightly at the different voice, rougher, ancient, and carrying undeniable power. So the other Ninetales finally speaks. She offered a respectful nod to the blade. I was beginning to think you were shy. A rumbling sound like distant thunder emerged from the sword, Kurama's version of a laugh. Shy? No. Observing? Yes. You're an interesting creature, Vastaya. Neither human nor spirit, but something in between. That makes two of us, doesn't it? Ahri replied with a knowing smile. Not quite beast, not quite human. 3, if you count our unwilling roommate, Kurama corrected, referring to Aatrox. Though he slumbers now, his rage temporarily exhausted. Good, Ahri nodded. One ancient, world-destroying entity at a time is plenty for conversation. Kurama's energy pulsed with something that might have been amusement. The kid trusts you. He trusts too easily, always has. But his instincts about people are rarely wrong. I'll take that as a compliment, Ahri said, resuming their journey along the hillside trail. Take it however you wish, Kurama replied. Just know that if you betray him, there will be nowhere in this world or the next that you can hide from me. The threat was delivered so matter-of-factly that it sent an involuntary shiver down Ahri's spine. She'd encountered many powerful beings in her long life, but something about Kurama's calm certainty told her this was no empty warning. I understand, she said simply. But you have nothing to worry about. I don't betray my friends. Friends, Kurama repeated the word as if testing its weight. Yes, the kid has always collected those. Very well, Vastaya. You've been warned. The blade's markings shifted back to their normal pattern, signaling Naruto's return to dominance. Sorry about that, Naruto's voice came through, sounding slightly embarrassed. Kurama can be overprotective. It's sweet, actually, Ahri replied with a genuine smile. Most people don't have someone looking out for them like that. Do you? Naruto asked. Have people looking out for you, I mean. Ahri's expression turned wistful as she navigated around a boulder. Not really. Vastaya often live in tribes, but I've always been different. My connection to humans set me apart, made me an outsider among my own kind. What about human friends? A shadow crossed Ahri's face. That's complicated. For a long time, my magic worked by taking human memories and life essence. It made forming lasting relationships difficult. Oh. For once, Naruto seemed at a loss for words. It's in the past, Ahri said quickly. I've learned to control my powers, to live without feeding on others. But the reputation stays with you, you know. The soul-stealing fox isn't exactly welcome at village gatherings. People fear what they don't understand, Naruto replied, a hint of old pain in his voice. Back in my village, everyone feared me because of Kurama. They called me a monster, avoided me. It took years to change their minds. How did you do it? Ahri asked, genuinely curious. One person at a time, Naruto answered. By never giving up, by proving them wrong again and again until they couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Eventually, I even became Hokage, the leader of my entire village. Impressive, Ahri acknowledged. Maybe there's hope for me yet. Definitely, Naruto's voice carried absolute conviction. Anyone who bothers to know the real you couldn't help but like you, Ahri. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, making her stumble slightly on the rocky path. No one had spoken to her with such unguarded belief in centuries. It was disorienting. And strangely warming. Let's make camp soon, she said, changing the subject before her emotions became too obvious. There's a sheltered ravine ahead that should keep us hidden from any Noxian scouts. As dusk settled over the foothills, they found the ravine Ahri had mentioned, a narrow cut in the landscape with a small stream running through it and enough overhanging rock to provide cover from both elements and prying eyes. Ahri gathered wood for a small fire while Naruto stood guard, the massive blade hovering at the entrance to their makeshift camp. So tell me more about your world, Ahri said as she coaxed flames from the kindling. You mentioned this Hokage position. What exactly did that entail? For the next hour, Naruto regaled her with stories of Konoha, the ninja world, and his journey from outcast child to respected leader. Ahri listened intently, fascinated by how different yet eerily similar his world sounded to Runeterra. Chakra networks, jutsu, tailed beasts, she mused. It's like a parallel version of our own magic systems, wild magic, spirit energy, aspects and ascended. Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing, Naruto agreed. That's probably why Kurama and I were able to adapt to this Darkin blade. Our energies were compatible somehow. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant sound, voices carried on the wind, followed by a column of smoke rising over the next ridge. That's not a campfire, Ahri said, immediately alert. Her ears twitched, straining to catch more sounds. Too big, too much smoke. We should check it out, Naruto suggested. Ahri hesitated only briefly before nodding. They quickly doused their own fire and moved toward the source of the smoke. As they crested the ridge, the scene below made Ahri's blood run cold. A small Ionian village was under attack. Men in the distinct armor of Noxian scouts were systematically moving through the settlement, setting fire to homes and rounding up villagers. It wasn't a full military operation, just 15 or 20 soldiers, but against unarmed farmers and craftspeople, it was more than enough. Conscription raid, Ahri whispered, her hands clenching into fists. They take the strongest villagers for their army, burn everything else to deny resources to Ionian forces. Naruto's blade pulsed with angry red light. We have to help them. There are at least 20 soldiers down there, Ahri cautioned. And we're trying to avoid drawing attention to ourselves, remember? Swain's forces are already looking for us. So we let those people suffer. The disappointment in Naruto's voice was palpable. Ahri sighed, knowing he was right. Some things were worth the risk. No, we don't. But we need to be smart about this. Quick and quiet, we take them out before they can sound an alarm. I can do quick, Naruto replied, his energy humming with anticipation. Not sure about quiet when you're a 6-foot glowing sword, but I'll try. They formulated a hasty plan. Ahri would use her charm magic on the perimeter guards, allowing them to approach undetected. Then Naruto would target the soldiers in the village center while Ahri freed the captives. Moving silently through the gathering darkness, Ahri approached the first Noxian guard. Her hand glowed with ethereal blue energy as she formed one of her charm orbs. "Hello there," she called softly, just enough to make him turn. The guard spun, spear at the ready, only to freeze as the charm orb passed through him. His eyes glazed over with blue light. "You didn't see anything unusual tonight," Ahri whispered, her voice layered with magical suggestion. "You're going to take a short nap now." The guard nodded dreamily before slumping to the ground. Ahri repeated the process with the second and third perimeter guards, clearing a path into the village. Meanwhile, Naruto hovered near the central square where most of the Noxian soldiers had gathered their captives, about 30 villagers kneeling with hands bound behind their backs. A Noxian officer paced before them, delivering what sounded like a recruitment speech at sword point. "The Noxian Empire offers strength and purpose," the officer was saying. "Serve with honor, and you'll be rewarded. Resist, and your families suffer. The choice is simple." Now, Ahri signaled as she positioned herself near the captives. Naruto didn't need to be told twice. The massive blade shot forward like a crimson comet, slamming into the ground between the officer and the villagers. The impact sent a shockwave that knocked several nearby soldiers off their feet. Before anyone could recover, the blade rose again, spinning like a deadly propeller. Naruto was careful to strike with the flat of the blade or the blunt edge, not wanting to kill unnecessarily. Soldiers went flying in all directions, crying out in shock and pain. "What in the name of Swain is that?" the officer shouted, drawing his sword. While the Noxians were distracted by the whirlwind of steel that was Naruto, Ahri dashed among the captives, using her claws to slice through their bonds. "Run for the eastern forest," she instructed them. "There's a resistance camp 2 days' journey that way. Ask for Aurelia." The freed villagers didn't need to be told twice. They scattered, some pausing only long enough to grab children or elderly relatives before fleeing. The Noxian officer, realizing his prize was escaping, bellowed in rage. "Stop them! And someone bring down that, whatever it is." 3 soldiers with crossbows took aim at Naruto, firing simultaneously. The bolts bounced harmlessly off the Darkin blade, which seemed only to make it angrier. The markings along its edge flared brilliant crimson as Naruto channeled more of Kurama's chakra. A wave of red energy pulsed outward from the blade, knocking the crossbowmen off their feet and shattering their weapons. Another soldier charged forward with a spear, only to have it cleaved in two by the massive sword. Ahri, meanwhile, was dealing with her own group of attackers. 2 Noxians cornered her against a burning building, thinking her the easier target. Their mistake became apparent when her eyes glowed blue and her tail spread wide behind her. "You boys picked the wrong fox to hunt," she said sweetly before launching forward with supernatural speed. She moved like a dancer, each step precise and deadly. Her claws left glowing trails in the air as she slashed at her attackers, not to kill but to disable. One soldier collapsed as she struck a pressure point in his shoulder, the other went down as her tail swept his legs from under him. Across the village square, Naruto had reduced the Noxian forces by half. Some lay unconscious, others had fled, and a few were trapped beneath debris Naruto had strategically dropped on them. The officer, seeing his mission collapsing around him, made a desperate decision. He grabbed a horn from his belt, a signal device to call for reinforcements, and raised it to his lips. "No you don't!" Naruto shouted, though only Ahri could hear him through the essence orb. The blade shot forward with incredible speed, knocking the horn from the officer's hand before he could sound it. Then, in a move that demonstrated Naruto's growing control, the blade flattened itself horizontally and rammed into the officer's chest like a battering ram, sending him flying backward into a water trough. When the officer struggled to rise, sputtering and soaked, he found the massive blade. Hovering inches from his throat, its edge glowing with menacing red light. "I suggest you reconsider your career choices," Ahri said, stepping into view with her charm magic swirling around her fingertips. "Noxian retirement benefits are terrible, I hear." The officer's eyes darted between the Vastaya and the floating sword. Whatever courage had sustained him finally broke. "Retreat," he yelled to his remaining men. "Fall back to the main force." The surviving Noxians grabbed what wounded comrades they could and fled into the night, leaving behind weapons, supplies, and their unconscious officer, who Ahri had charmed into a deep sleep. As the sounds of their retreat faded, villagers began cautiously emerging from hiding places or returning from the forest edge. They approached Ahri and Naruto with a mixture of gratitude and fear, especially regarding the massive floating sword. An elderly man, apparently the village elder, stepped forward with a respectful bow. "We thank you for your aid, Fox Spirit, though I admit your companion gives us pause." "He's a friend," Ahri assured them. "He won't harm any of you." Naruto lowered himself to appear less threatening, his markings shifting to a calmer golden hue. "Is that a Darkin weapon?" a younger woman asked, her voice hushed with awe and fear. Whispers spread through the gathered villagers. Everyone in Ionia had heard legends of the Darkin wars, of the god warriors who had nearly destroyed the world in ancient times. "Not exactly," Ahri hedged, unsure how much to reveal. "He's something new. Something different. Whatever he is, he fought for us when no one else would," the elder declared, silencing the whispers. "That makes him welcome here." The remaining hours of the night were spent helping the villagers salvage what they could from their damaged homes. Those whose houses had been completely destroyed were taken in by neighbors. The wounded were tended to, including several Noxian soldiers too injured to retreat with their comrades. "You're helping them too?" Naruto asked through the essence orb as Ahri bandaged a Noxian soldier's broken arm. "Enemy or not, they're still people," she replied quietly. "Besides, leaving them to die would make us no better than them." Naruto's energy pulsed with approval. "Couldn't agree more." By dawn, the village had been secured and basic repairs begun. Ahri and Naruto prepared to continue their journey, knowing that lingering too long would only bring more danger to these people. "The Noxians will return," the elder warned as they said their goodbyes. "And next time, they'll bring more men. Head east to Aurelia's camp," Ahri advised again. "She can offer protection. Tell her Ahri sent you." "And what of you two?" the elder asked. "Where are you bound?" "North," Ahri replied simply. "We seek someone who might help with my friend's condition." The elder studied the floating sword with wise, ancient eyes. "There is great power there, but also great turmoil. Be careful, Fox Spirit. Not all prisons are meant to be opened." "We'll keep that in mind," Ahri promised, though she noticed Naruto's markings dim slightly at the elder's words. They departed as the village began to stir with morning activity, heading north once more through increasingly rough terrain. Neither spoke for a long time, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Naruto broke the silence. "Do you think he's right? That maybe I'm supposed to stay like this?" Ahri glanced back at the hovering blade, her expression softening. "I think you didn't ask for this fate, and you deserve a chance to choose your own path. Even if it means risking releasing Aatrox too. We'll find a way to separate you," Ahri said with more confidence than she felt. "The ritual we saw in the sacred pool showed it was possible." "Yeah," Naruto's voice brightened somewhat. "You're right. No point worrying about it until we talk to this hermit of yours." They continued their journey through the day, making good time despite the challenging landscape. By mid-afternoon, they crested a particularly steep hill and were rewarded with a breathtaking view. The northern mountains of Ionia spread before them in all their majesty, peaks disappearing into the clouds. "Wow," Naruto breathed. "It's like looking at the Hokage monument, but 100 times bigger." "Koro's dwelling should be in that valley," Ahri pointed to a forested depression between two smaller peaks. "We can reach it by nightfall if we hurry." As they began their descent, Naruto suddenly tensed. "Something's coming," he warned, his markings flaring defensively. Ahri froze, her keen senses stretching outward. At first, she detected nothing, but then, a subtle vibration in the ground beneath her feet, growing stronger by the second. Many footsteps, she whispered. Too many. They quickly took cover behind a rocky outcropping as the source of the disturbance came into view in the valley below, a Noxian battalion, at least 200 strong, marching in perfect formation along the main road. War machines and supply wagons followed the soldiers, indicating this was no mere scouting party but a significant military force. That's way more than I expected this far north, Ahri murmured, her ears flattening against her head. And look at their banner. Naruto focused on the crimson flag at the head of the column. It bore the symbol of a raven with multiple eyes, similar to the Noxian emblem they'd seen before, but more elaborate. What does it mean? He asked. It's Swain's personal standard, Ahri explained, her voice tight with concern. The Grand General himself must be with that force. The guy the pool warned us about, Naruto recalled. But why would their leader come all the way out here? For a Darkin weapon? Ahri raised an eyebrow. Swain would cross oceans for that kind of power. The man's ambition is legendary. They watched the battalion march past, staying well hidden among the rocks. The column seemed endless, infantry, cavalry, mages in dark robes, and contraptions of war that Naruto had never seen before. We need to warn Koro, Ahri decided once the last of the Noxians had passed. If they're heading toward his valley, he could be in danger. I thought he was some powerful hermit monk, Naruto said as they carefully emerged from hiding. Powerful, yes, but one man against an army? Ahri shook her head. Even he has limits. They changed course, taking a more direct route toward the hermit's valley. It meant traveling over rougher terrain, but it would allow them to arrive before the Noxian force. As they hurried along narrow mountain paths, Ahri explained more about their destination. Koro was once the keeper of forbidden knowledge for the Kinku order. He studied dangerous magic so others wouldn't have to risk corruption. What happened? The magic changed him. Not corrupted, exactly, but altered his perspective. He began to question the Kinku's rigid stance on balance. Eventually, he left to pursue his studies alone. Sounds like my kind of guy, Naruto commented. Never did like arbitrary rules. Ahri smiled despite their urgent pace. You two might get along, if he doesn't try to bind you in an eternal stasis field first. Wait, what? He's cautious about powerful artifacts, Ahri explained with a shrug. Being turned into a magical paperweight is a distinct possibility. Great, Naruto's markings pulsed in what Ahri had learned was his version of an eye roll. Can't wait to meet him. They pushed on as the sun began its descent behind the mountains, casting long shadows across their path. The valley was close now, they could see the tree line thinning ahead, revealing a secluded basin nestled between protective peaks. As they reached the valley's edge, Ahri suddenly stopped, her ears twitching. Something's wrong, she whispered. It's too quiet. The valley before them should have been alive with the sounds of wildlife, birds, small animals, insects. Instead, an unnatural silence hung over the trees below. Could the Noxians have gotten here already? Naruto asked, scanning for signs of the battalion. They'd spotted. No, Ahri frowned. They were taking the main road. It would take them hours to reach this point. Her tails bristled with tension. This is something else. They descended cautiously into the valley, alert for any threat. The forest grew denser around them, ancient trees with massive trunks creating a shadowy canopy overhead. Still, the unnatural silence persisted. I don't like this, Naruto muttered, his blade hovering in a defensive position. They had traveled perhaps half a mile into the valley when Ahri suddenly gasped, dropping to one knee. Her hand went to her chest as if in pain. Ahri. Naruto moved closer, concerned. What's wrong? Magic, she managed through gritted teeth. Some kind of dampening field. It's affecting my Vastaean essence. No sooner had she spoken than Naruto felt it too, a strange pressure pushing against his consciousness, making it harder to maintain his connection to the blade. The sword wobbled in the air, dipping closer to the ground. Something's trying to suppress my chakra, he realized. Kurama, you feel that? Yes, the fox growled within their shared space. Ancient magic, Kit. Similar to sealing jutsu, but different. Be on guard. They pressed forward despite the growing discomfort, determined to reach their destination. Ahri recovered enough to walk, though her movements were less graceful than usual, her tails dragging slightly behind her. The trees finally opened into a small clearing where a modest structure stood, not quite a house, not quite a temple, but something in between. Built of stone and living wood that seemed to have grown into architectural forms, it radiated an aura of ancient power. Koro's dwelling, Ahri confirmed, her voice strained. But something's definitely wrong. The suppression field, it shouldn't be activated unless he feels threatened. As if in answer to her observation, a figure emerged from the structure, an elderly man with a long white beard and flowing robes covered in arcane symbols. Despite his apparent age, he moved with the fluid grace of a much younger person. Vastaya, he called, his voice carrying surprising strength. You bring a Darkin to my doorstep and expect welcome? His gaze fixed on the hovering blade behind her, eyes narrowing. Foolish child. Master Koro, Ahri bowed respectfully despite her discomfort. We come seeking your wisdom, not conflict. My companion is, I know what it is, Koro interrupted sharply. The question is whether you do. He made a swift gesture with one hand, and the pressure of the suppression field intensified. Naruto felt his control slipping. The blade dipped lower, now hovering only a foot above the ground. Ahri, he projected weakly through the essence orb. Can't hold on much longer. Please, Ahri appealed to the hermit. At least hear us out. This isn't what you think. Koro studied her for a long moment, his ancient eyes seemingly peering through her. Finally, he sighed. Very well. But the weapon remains outside. Another gesture from the old man, and a dome of shimmering energy encircled the blade, anchoring it in place. It won't harm your friend if he truly means no harm, Koro explained. But it will prevent the Darkin from influencing anyone within my sanctuary. Ahri glanced at Naruto apologetically. I'll explain everything to him, she promised before following the hermit inside. Left alone, Naruto struggled against the binding magic, but it was unlike anything he'd encountered before. Not painful, exactly, but restrictive, like trying to move while submerged in thick mud. Well, this is going great so far, he muttered to Kurama. The old human is powerful, the fox acknowledged grudgingly. His magic is interesting. Not chakra-based, yet somehow familiar. Yeah, well, I hope Ahri can convince him we're not the bad guys here. Inside the dwelling, Ahri was doing exactly that. She explained their situation to Koro, Naruto's arrival from another world, his binding to the Darkin blade, their discovery in the sacred pool, and the approaching Noxian forces. The hermit listened without interruption, occasionally stroking his beard in thought. When Ahri finally finished, he remained silent for several long minutes. In all my centuries of study, he eventually said, I have never encountered anything quite like this. A foreign soul binding with a Darkin weapon, yet maintaining dominance over the Darkin consciousness. Unprecedented. Then you believe me? Ahri asked hopefully. I believe you believe what you're saying, Koro replied carefully. Whether your sword friend is being truthful or merely manipulating you is another matter entirely. He saved an entire village from Noxians, Ahri argued. He's had multiple opportunities to possess victims or go on a rampage, yet he hasn't. Doesn't that count for something? Perhaps, the old man conceded. Or perhaps it's simply playing a longer game. Darkin are immortal, Vastaya. They can afford patience. Before Ahri could respond, a distant sound reached them, the rhythmic beat of war drums. Koro's expression darkened. It seems we'll have to continue this discussion another time. The Noxians approach faster than expected. You have to help us, Ahri pleaded. The pool showed a ritual that could separate Naruto from the blade without releasing Aatrox. If you know anything about it, such a ritual would require tremendous power. Koro cut her off. And components not easily obtained. But now is not the time. He moved toward a back wall lined with ancient weapons and artifacts. First, we must deal with our unwelcome visitors. Outside, Naruto had also heard the approaching drums. Despite the binding field, he could sense the Noxian battalion drawing closer, much closer than they should have been if they'd stayed on the main road. They're coming straight for us, he realized. But how did they know where to find this place? Within their shared mindscape, Kurama growled in frustration. Someone must have tracked us from the village. Or what? Or they were following us all along, the fox finished grimly. The hermit emerged from his dwelling, Ahri close behind. Koro approached the bound sword, studying it with narrowed eyes before making another complex gesture. The binding field shifted, still containing the blade but allowing more movement. Your Vastaya friend has pleaded your case. Naruto, was it? The old man said, addressing the sword directly. I remain skeptical, but circumstances force my hand. The Noxians must not acquire a Darkin weapon. Agreed, Naruto replied through the essence orb. So maybe let me help fight them off. In due time, Koro said cryptically. He turned to Ahri. First, we need reinforcements. To Naruto's surprise, Koro raised both hands and began chanting in a language he'd never heard before. The air around them shimmered as the hermit's voice grew louder, the strange syllables seeming to twist reality itself. Suddenly, the ground throughout the valley trembled. From the forest emerged figures, dozens, then hundreds of them. They weren't human or Vastaya, but something else entirely, spirits made partially manifest, glowing with ethereal light and taking vague humanoid forms. The guardians of the valley, Koro explained, seeing Ahri's shocked expression. Ancient spirits bound to protect this sanctuary. They do not often answer my call, but they sense the threat as clearly as we do. The spirit army, nearly 1,000 strong, assembled silently around the clearing, awaiting Koro's command. Okay, that's impressive, Naruto admitted. But I still want in on this fight. Koro regarded the sword thoughtfully. Very well. But know this, if you attempt to possess anyone, or if the Darkin within you breaks free, I will destroy you, regardless of what it costs me. Fair enough, Naruto agreed. But that's not going to happen. With another gesture, Koro released the binding field around the blade. Naruto immediately felt his connection strengthen, the sword rising to hover at full height once more. The Noxians will reach the valley entrance in minutes, Koro informed them. We should. His words were cut off by a sudden explosion that shook the entire valley. Trees at the northern edge burst into flames as Noxian war machines breached the forest line. Or they could be here now, Ahri said grimly, her hands beginning to glow with charm magic. The battle was joined almost immediately. The spirit guardians surged forward to meet the Noxian vanguard, heavily armored soldiers wielding brutal axes and maces. Behind them came standard infantry, archers, and war mages wearing the distinctive crimson robes of Noxus. Koro raised his hands again, and the earth itself responded to his command. The ground beneath the Noxian war machines buckled and shifted, toppling one and trapping another in suddenly soft terrain that hardened just as quickly. Ahri moved with lethal grace through the battlefield, her charm magic confusing enemy soldiers and turning them against each other. When direct combat was unavoidable, her claws and tails proved just as deadly as any blade. Naruto, for his part, found that battle as a sword had certain advantages. He could change direction instantly, strike from unexpected angles, and no physical blow could harm him. He cut through the Noxian ranks like a crimson whirlwind, careful to use the flat of his blade when possible, but not hesitating to deliver lethal strikes when necessary. There are too many of them. Ahri called as she regrouped near Koro, her fur singed from a close encounter with a fire mage. The hermit nodded grimly. They came prepared for spirit resistance. Their mages are disrupting my connection to the guardians. Indeed, the spirit army was already diminishing, many of the ethereal warriors dissipating as Noxian mages targeted them with specialized spells. We need to take out those mages, Naruto suggested, hovering nearby. Agreed, Koro said. But they're protected behind multiple lines of soldiers. Breaking through would be. He was interrupted by a new sound cutting through the chaos of battle, a horn, different from the Noxian war drums. This call was higher, wilder, resonating with natural magic. From the western edge of the valley, new combatants emerged, Vastaya warriors, their animal features marking them as foxes, wildcats, and birds of prey. They moved with incredible speed and coordination, falling upon the Noxian flank with ferocious efficiency. The Soturi tribe, Ahri whispered, her eyes wide with surprise. What are they doing here? The spirits must have called them, Koro explained. They maintain an ancient pact with this valley. The Vastayan reinforcements quickly turned the tide of battle. While the Noxians had come prepared for human or spirit opposition, they found themselves outmatched by the Vastayas. Combination of physical prowess and innate magic. Naruto seized the opportunity, launching himself toward the Noxian mage corps. The massive blade cut through the air, leaving a trail of golden-red energy as it went. The mages tried to redirect their spells toward this new threat, but Naruto was too fast, too unpredictable. He struck the ground in their midst, channeling Kurama's chakra to create a shockwave that scattered the dark-robed figures. Before they could recover, he was among them, the flat of his blade knocking them unconscious one after another. Across the battlefield, the Noxian commander, a hulking man with a mechanical arm, bellowed orders to regroup. His troops responded with practiced discipline, forming a defensive circle around their remaining war machines. They're preparing for a final stand, Koro observed. Now we'll see who truly leads this force. As if on cue, the Noxian ranks parted to reveal a tall, imposing figure emerging from the command tent. He wore an ornate uniform of crimson and black, with a raven perched on his shoulder. Most striking was his left arm, or rather, the demonic limb that had replaced it, moving with unnatural fluidity. Swain, Ahri breathed, her tails bristling. The Grand General of Noxus surveyed the battlefield with calculating eyes, seemingly unconcerned by his force's setbacks. When his gaze fell upon the floating Darkin blade, a thin smile crossed his features. Fascinating, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly across the battlefield. The reports were accurate. A Darkin weapon that acts independently. He stepped forward, and his demonic arm seemed to pulse with dark energy. I would speak with whoever, or whatever, controls that blade. Naruto hesitated, looking to Ahri and Koro for guidance. The hermit's expression was grim, while Ahri's showed open concern. Be careful, she warned. Swain isn't just a military leader. He's bonded with a demon. He sees more than most. Naruto floated forward until he hovered midway between the Noxian lines and his allies. What do you want? He projected, his voice carrying through the essence orb that Ahri had attached to the blade's hilt. Swain's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of his surprise at hearing the weapon speak. Direct. I appreciate that. He stepped closer, ignoring the tension rippling through both armies. What I want is simple, to understand what you are. No Darkin has ever demonstrated your level of autonomy. I'm not your typical Darkin, Naruto replied carefully. Clearly. Swain studied the blade, his eyes glinting with intelligence and ambition. You've aligned yourself with Ionians, interesting choice for a being of your heritage. The Darkin were never known for their sentimentality. Maybe I'm setting a new trend. A hint of amusement crossed Swain's face. Perhaps. Or perhaps you're something else entirely. His demonic arm twitched, as if sensing something. Yes. I can sense it now. You're not alone in there, are you? Multiple consciousnesses, how extraordinary. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him, disturbed by Swain's perception. Even more concerning was the sudden awareness of Aatrox's presence, roused by the Grand General's scrutiny. "What I am is none of your business," Naruto said firmly. "Take your army and leave this valley." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Swain replied, his tone almost regretful. "A weapon of your potential cannot be left in uncertain hands. Noxus requires certainty." Without warning, Swain's demonic arm transformed, extending into a massive claw that shot toward the hovering blade with incredible speed. Naruto barely managed to dodge, the claw grazing his edge and sending an uncomfortable sensation through his consciousness, like someone trying to pry into his thoughts. "Interesting defenses," Swain noted, retracting his arm. "But everyone has weaknesses." He made a swift gesture, and suddenly a dozen crossbows from the Noxian lines turned, not toward Naruto, but toward Ahri. "For instance," Swain continued calmly, "your concern for the Vastaya is quite evident. I wonder how far you'd go to protect her." Before the Noxians could fire, Koro stepped forward, arcane energy swirling around his hands. "Enough, Swain. You face powers you don't understand." "On the contrary," the Grand General replied. "Understanding power is precisely my specialty." What happened next occurred so rapidly that even Ahri's enhanced senses struggled to follow. Swain's form suddenly erupted with demonic energy, his body transforming into a monstrous amalgamation of man and raven. Massive wings spread from his back as his demonic arm multiplied into several writhing limbs. At the same moment, Koro unleashed a blast of pure spirit energy that collided with Swain's transformation. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, knocking combatants from both sides off their feet. When the dust cleared, Swain stood unharmed within a sphere of demonic protection, while Koro had been thrown backward, his robe smoldering. "As I said," Swain remarked, his voice now layered with inhuman overtones, "I understand power." He turned his attention back to Naruto. "Now, Darkin, I'll ask once more, join Noxus willingly, or watch your friend suffer." Naruto felt anger rising within him, his own, and Kurama's, and surprisingly, Aatrox's as well. The ancient Darkin, usually content to simmer in the background, was suddenly alert and furious at Swain's presumption. "You dare!" Aatrox's voice boomed through the essence orb, startling everyone. "A mortal who plays with demons presumes to command me?" Swain's eyes widened slightly, the first sign of genuine surprise he'd shown. "Ah, there you are. The true Darkin awakens." Inside their shared mindscape, Naruto confronted the surging consciousness of Aatrox. "What are you doing? We had an agreement." "This insect threatens what is mine," Aatrox rumbled. "I will not be collected like a trophy by some demon-tainted human." "Then help me fight him," Naruto urged. "But on my terms. No possession, no massacre." There was a pause as the ancient entity considered this. "Very well. Temporarily, I grant you access to more of my power. Show this pretender what true ascension looks like." In the physical world, the Darkin blade began to transform. Its already massive form grew larger, the jagged edge extending and reshaping into something even more fearsome. The markings along its surface blazed with combined energies, Naruto's gold, Kurama's red, and Aatrox's crimson black. "I don't need Noxus," Naruto projected, his voice now carrying a hint of Aatrox's ancient power. "And I certainly don't need you." The transformed blade shot forward with blinding speed, directly toward Swain. The Grand General's demonic shield flared as he attempted to block the attack, but Naruto, now empowered by Aatrox, sliced through the protection as if it were paper. Swain barely managed to dodge, losing a portion of his transformed wing in the process. His face showed genuine alarm now as he unleashed a barrage of demonic energy toward Naruto. The battle quickly escalated to a level beyond conventional warfare. Swain called upon his full demonic powers, summoning ravens of pure energy that sought to overwhelm Naruto through sheer numbers. But the combined might of ninja, fox spirit, and Darkin proved formidable. Naruto wove through the demonic assault, his blade form cutting down the spectral ravens while driving Swain steadily backward. Each clash released waves of energy that scorched the ground and sent nearby soldiers scrambling for cover. Meanwhile, Ahri had recovered from the initial shock and rallied the Vastaean warriors to deal with the remaining Noxian forces. Koro, though injured, managed to strengthen the valley's natural defenses, causing the very earth to rise up against the invaders. Swain, realizing the battle was turning against him, made a calculated decision. With a gesture of his demonic arm, he summoned a whirlwind of dark energy that engulfed himself and Naruto. "If I cannot have you willingly," his voice echoed within the vortex, "then I'll take you by force." Demonic tendrils lashed out, wrapping around the Darkin blade and attempting to wrench it from Naruto's control. For the first time since arriving in this world, Naruto felt his connection to the blade weakening, not from within, but from without. "Kurama," he called mentally. "What's happening?" "He's using the demon's power to separate us from the blade," the fox growled. "I forced extraction." The pain was excruciating, like having his soul torn in half. Naruto fought to maintain his grip on consciousness as Swain's magic pulled at him. "I can sense your struggle," Swain said, his voice almost sympathetic despite the demonic overtones. "It would be easier to surrender. Noxus can offer you purpose, direction for your considerable power." "I already have a purpose," Naruto managed through the pain. "And it's not serving you." With a tremendous effort, he channeled Kurama's chakra in a way he hadn't attempted since arriving in Runeterra, forming a Rasengan-like sphere of pure energy at the blade's tip. The spiraling orb grew rapidly, destabilizing Swain's vortex from within. "What?" Swain barely had time to register his surprise before the energy sphere detonated. The explosion blasted both combatants apart, dispelling the vortex and sending them flying in opposite directions. Naruto crashed through several trees before embedding himself in a boulder at the edge of the valley. Swain was thrown back into his own lines, his demonic transformation faltering as he struggled to his feet. But the damage had been done. Naruto felt his connection to the blade hanging by a thread. Something in Swain's extraction attempt had partially succeeded, enough to leave him vulnerable, disoriented. Through blurred awareness, he saw Ahri fighting her way toward him, desperation evident in her movements. She was shouting something, but he couldn't make out the words over the ringing in his non-existent ears. Then a new sound cut through the chaos, a high, clear note that seemed to freeze the very air around them. The battlefield fell eerily silent as all eyes turned toward its source. A Vastaean woman stood at the edge of the clearing, older than Ahri, with silver-streaked auburn hair and 7 foxtails instead of 9. She held a small bone flute to her lips, the instrument glowing with ancient magic. "Atsuko," Ahri whispered, recognition and something like trepidation in her voice. The Vastaean elder lowered her flute and surveyed the battlefield with eyes that had seen centuries pass. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of authority that required no volume to command attention. "This sacred valley is under the protection of the Soturi tribe," she declared, her gaze fixing on Swain. "You have brought war to a place of peace, Noxian. That alone would merit our intervention." She turned slightly, taking in the Darkin blade still embedded in the boulder. "But you have also attempted to tamper with forces beyond your comprehension. That, we cannot allow." Swain had recovered enough to stand straight, his demonic features receding back to human form save for his arm. He assessed the Vastaean elder with the calculated caution of a tactician recognizing a significant threat. "The Soturi," he acknowledged with a slight inclination of his head. "I was unaware this valley fell under your protection. A regrettable oversight." "Regrettable indeed," Atsuko replied coldly. "Remove your forces immediately, or we will remove them for you." It was not an idle threat. Behind her, dozens more Vastaean warriors had appeared, each radiating natural magic that made the air shimmer around them. Swain weighed his options visibly, glancing from his depleted forces to the Vastaean reinforcements to the damaged but still formidable Darkin blade. Finally, pragmatism won out over ambition, at least temporarily. Noxus knows when to advance and when to regroup, he said smoothly. We will withdraw, for now. His gaze lingered on Naruto. But our conversation is merely postponed, Darkin, not concluded. With remarkable discipline, the Noxian forces began an orderly retreat, collecting their wounded and salvageable equipment as they went. Swain himself remained until the last of his soldiers had cleared the valley entrance, his calculating eyes never leaving the Vastaean elder. We will meet again, he said, a promise, not a threat, before turning to follow his army. Only when the last Noxian had disappeared from view did Atsuko lower her flute completely. The Vastaean warriors relaxed their stance but remained vigilant as she approached the embedded blade. Ahri reached Naruto first, her hands hovering uncertainly over the weapon. Naruto? Can you hear me? The blade's markings flickered weakly, like a guttering candle. Yeah, his voice came faintly through the essence orb. But something's wrong. I can't maintain the connection. Swain's extraction spell, Koro explained, limping to join them. It was incomplete, but damaging nonetheless. The binding between your friend and the Darkin weapon has been partially severed. Is that good or bad? Naruto managed to ask. Neither, necessarily, the hermit replied. But it is dangerous. In this weakened state, the true Darkin might seize control, or your essence might disperse entirely. Ahri's expression hardened with determination. How do we fix it? We don't, Atsuko interrupted, arriving beside them. Her ancient eyes studied the blade with a mixture of curiosity and caution. At least, not here. Ahri turned to the elder Vastaia, automatically lowering her gaze in respect. Atsuko-sama. Thank you for your help. It was necessary, the elder replied simply. The balance of this valley must be maintained. She reached out a clawed hand, stopping just short of touching the blade. This one is strange. Not fully Darkin, yet bound to Darkin essence. His name is Naruto, Ahri explained. He's from elsewhere. The blade trapped his soul when he arrived in our world. Atsuko's ears twitched with interest. Ah. The stranger the spirits whispered about. She made a decision, nodding once. He must come with us to the Soturi enclave. Our healers can stabilize his condition until a more permanent solution is found. Koro frowned. Elder Atsuko, with all due respect, this involves Darkin magic. It may be beyond even your tribe's considerable abilities. Perhaps, she conceded. But it is also partially spirit magic, which is very much our domain. Her tone brooked no further argument. The Vastaia had treaties with the Darkin before they fell to corruption. Some of that knowledge may yet serve us. With gentle hands, Atsuko and two other Vastaean healers carefully extracted the blade from the boulder. Naruto felt himself being wrapped in layers of protective magic, similar to Koro's binding field, but softer, more supportive than restrictive. Rest now, stranger, Atsuko instructed as they secured the blade to a specially prepared carrying frame. Save your strength. The journey to our enclave is not long, but for one in your condition, every moment requires conservation of energy. Naruto wanted to argue, to ask more questions, but exhaustion overwhelmed him. His awareness dimmed, retreating into the depths of the blade where Kurama waited. Kit, the fox greeted him in their shared mindscape. That was reckless, even by your standards. Did we win? Naruto asked, his mental form appearing hazy and translucent. For now, Kurama confirmed. But that Swain creature, he's dangerous. His demon nearly separated us from the blade. Would that have been so bad? Isn't that what we want? The fox's expression turned grim. Not like that. The extraction was incomplete. Without a proper vessel prepared, we would have dispersed into nothingness, not death, exactly, but an eternal, formless existence. Oh. Naruto considered this. That sounds, not great. Indeed, Kurama agreed dryly. Fortunately, These Vastaya seem to know what they're doing. Their magic feels compatible with ours. Where's Aatrox? Naruto suddenly realized the Darkin's presence was unusually quiet. Dormant, for now. The battle and extraction attempt drained him as well. But he'll recover, probably faster than we will. He helped us, Naruto noted with surprise. Against Swain. Don't read too much into it, Kurama warned. He wasn't helping us so much as preventing someone else from claiming what he considers his. Still, Naruto insisted stubbornly. It's progress. In the physical world, Ahri walked beside the Vastayan carriers transporting Naruto's blade, her expression tight with worry. Koro had elected to remain behind to restore his sanctuary, but promised to send any relevant information he could find about Darkin bindings to the Sotori Enclave. Will he be alright? Ahri asked Atsuko as they traveled along a hidden mountain path. The elder Vastaya considered the question. His spirit is strong, but fragmented. The binding was already unusual, 3 souls sharing one vessel. Now that binding has been damaged. She glanced at Ahri with knowing eyes. You care for this stranger. It wasn't a question, but Ahri answered anyway. He saved my life. And he's different. He understands what it's like to share your body with a powerful spirit, to be feared for what you are rather than who you are. Atsuko nodded, unsurprised. Kindred souls often find each other, even across worlds. After a moment, she added, You've been away from your people too long, Ahri. The Sotori have never closed their doors to you. I know, Ahri replied softly. But after what happened with the last tribe I stayed with. The past is a lesson, not a prison, Atsuko said firmly. You've learned control since then. Besides, 7 lives lost must be balanced against the hundreds you've saved since. That's not how grief works, Ahri countered. Atsuko's expression softened slightly. No, it isn't. But perhaps this stranger's predicament will offer you perspective on your own. The journey to the Sotori Enclave took several hours, winding through hidden mountain passes that no human had ever traversed. As the sun began to set, they arrived at a massive waterfall cascading down a sheer cliff face. Without hesitation, the Vastayan procession walked directly into the falling water. Instead of being soaked, they passed through into a hidden cavern behind the waterfall. The cave opened into a breathtaking sight, a vast valley completely enclosed by mountains, invisible from the outside world. Ancient trees with trunks wider than houses supported a canopy that filtered the fading sunlight into dappled patterns. Nestled among these trees were Vastayan dwellings, some built directly into the living wood, others floating on platforms suspended by magic and vines. The heart of Sotori, Atsuko announced. Hidden from human eyes for 10,000 years. The Vastayan community came alive at their arrival, curious faces appearing in doorways and on platforms. Most resembled foxes or other canids, though some showed traits of wildcats or birds. Children darted between trees, their small tails or wings still developing but already in use for play and mischief. They proceeded to the center of the enclave where an enormous tree stood, its trunk hollowed into a natural hall big enough to house hundreds. Inside, the carriers gently placed Naruto's blade upon a raised stone dais covered in glowing runes. Prepare the stabilization ritual, Atsuko instructed several older Vastaya. And bring the memory crystal. We must understand exactly what we're dealing with. As the preparations began, Ahri remained by Naruto's side. Can you hear me? She asked softly, placing a hand near the blade without touching it. The markings flickered weakly in response, but no voice came through the essence orb. He needs to conserve his energy, Atsuko explained, joining her. The ritual will help strengthen his connection to the blade temporarily, but ultimately, a more permanent solution will be needed. The sacred pool showed a ritual that might separate him from the blade, Ahri told the elder. Give him a body of his own. Atsuko's ears perked with interest. Did it show the components needed for such a ritual? Partially. Ancient runes, a ritual circle, and something else I couldn't quite make out. The elder Vastaya considered this information. After we stabilize him, we can consult the ancestral memories. If such a ritual exists, our forebears may have recorded it. The preparations continued into the night. Vastayan healers worked tirelessly, channeling spirit magic into the protective runes surrounding the blade. Gradually, the markings on Naruto's surface began to pulse more steadily, indicating the stabilization was working. Ahri remained vigilant despite growing exhaustion. She declined offers of food and rest, determined to be present when Naruto regained full consciousness. Finally, near midnight, the essence orb flickered back to life. Ahri? Naruto's voice came through, weak but clear. I'm here, she replied immediately, relief washing over her. How do you feel? Like I got hit by one of Sakura's punches, he answered, attempting humor despite his condition. What happened after I blacked out? Ahri explained their journey to the Sotori Enclave and the ongoing efforts to stabilize his connection to the blade. As she spoke, Naruto's markings grew steadily brighter, indicating his returning strength. These Vastaya, they're your people? He asked. More or less, Ahri confirmed. The Sotori tribe is one of the oldest Vastayan lineages, primarily fox-affiliated, though they've welcomed other variants over the centuries. They seem nice. Definitely better hosts than that Koro guy. Ahri smiled despite herself. Koro has trust issues. Occupational hazard when you study forbidden magic for centuries. As they talked, Atsuko returned with several elder Vastaya. They carried between them a large crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. The memory crystal is ready, Atsuko announced. If you feel strong enough, Darkin-bound one, we would like to learn more about you directly, rather than through intermediaries. You can call me Naruto, he replied. And yeah, I'm feeling better. What's this crystal thing do? It allows us to see memories, yours, if you're willing to share them, the elder explained. It would help us understand your unique condition and possibly find a solution. Naruto hesitated only briefly. Will it show everything? Because some of my memories aren't exactly pleasant. The crystal responds to intent, Atsuko assured him. You can guide it to show only what you wish us to see. Then I'm in, Naruto decided. Let's do this. The Vastayan elders placed the crystal near the blade. Atsuko instructed Naruto to focus on memories that would help them understand his journey, his origin, his connection to Kurama, and his arrival in Runeterra. As Naruto concentrated, the crystal began to glow brighter. Images formed within its faceted surface: Konoha village, the nine-tailed fox attack, Naruto as a child shunned by villagers, his ninja training, the gradual revelation of Kurama's presence, and finally, the epic battle with Sasuke that somehow led to his transportation to this world. The Vastaya watched in silent fascination. Even Ahri, who had heard some of these stories from Naruto directly, was moved by seeing them play out. The raw emotion in the memories, Naruto's determination, his suffering, his unwavering loyalty to friends, touched something deep within her. When the memories reached the moment of Naruto's arrival in Runeterra, something unexpected happened. The crystal suddenly pulsed with crimson light, and new images appeared, memories that weren't Naruto's. They saw a golden warrior fighting in ancient battles, his wings spread magnificently against a desert sky. They witnessed his transformation, his corruption, his descent into madness and the horrific Darkin wars that followed. Finally, they saw his defeat and imprisonment within the very blade that now housed Naruto. Aatrox, Atsuko breathed, her eyes wide with recognition. The World Ender himself. The crystal went dark as the memories concluded. For a long moment, the vast hall remained silent, the Vastaya processing what they had witnessed. Now you understand, Naruto said finally. I'm sharing space with both Kurama, my partner, and Aatrox, the original owner of this blade. 3 souls in one vessel, Atsuko mused. No wonder the binding is unstable. One of the other elders, a male Vastaya with 6 tails and scholarly spectacles, stepped forward. The memories confirm what the spirit whispers suggested. This is unprecedented, but not inexplicable. The Darkin binding ritual was designed to imprison one soul. With three competing for dominance, the magical architecture is strained. Is there a way to fix it? Ahri asked anxiously. To give Naruto his own body without releasing Aatrox. The scholarly Vastaya adjusted his spectacles thoughtfully. Theoretically, yes. The ancestral records speak of a separation ritual used during the latter days of the Darkin Wars. It was designed to free human hosts who had not yet been fully consumed by their Darkin possessors. Would it work for me? Naruto asked, hope evident in his voice. With modifications, the scholar replied cautiously. Your case is unique. You weren't possessed in the traditional sense, you were bound directly to the weapon along with the original Darkin. The ritual would need to be adapted. What would we need? Ahri pressed. The scholar listed off several requirements: rare herbs found only in specific regions of Ionia, runestones from an ancient temple, celestial iron that could only be harvested from fallen stars, and most challenging of all, blood from an aspect. An aspect? Naruto questioned. What's that? Celestial beings who sometimes inhabit mortal hosts, Atsuko explained. Similar to your tailed beasts in some ways, but cosmic rather than chakra-based. Their blood contains power that could help anchor your essence during the separation. And where exactly do we find one of these aspects? Ahri asked skeptically. Mount Targan, the scholar replied. The sacred mountain where the veil between Runeterra and the celestial realm is thinnest. Aspects are chosen there, when mortals successfully climb to the summit and are deemed worthy. Naruto would have groaned if he had a body. So we need to climb the tallest mountain in the world, find a cosmic god person, and politely ask them for some blood? Great. It does present challenges, Atsuko acknowledged with the faintest hint of amusement. But there may be alternatives. Not all components are strictly necessary, substitutions can sometimes be made with sufficient magical knowledge. The discussion continued late into the night as the Vastayan elders debated various approaches to the ritual. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with everyone, and Atsuko called for rest. We will continue tomorrow, she decided. The blade-bound one is stable for now, and clearer heads will find better solutions after sleep. The hall gradually emptied until only Ahri remained with Naruto. She had been provided with comfortable cushions near the dais but showed no inclination to sleep. You should rest, Naruto told her gently. I'm not going anywhere. I know, Ahri replied, stifling a yawn. I don't want you to be alone. The sentiment touched Naruto deeply. I'm never really alone, he said. Kurama's always with me. But having you here, it means a lot. Ahri smiled, her 9 tails curling around her as she settled more comfortably on the cushions. Tell me more about your friends from your world, she requested, fighting to keep her eyes open. The ones in your memories. Naruto began describing Sakura's monstrous strength, Kakashi's perpetual lateness, and Shikamaru's brilliant laziness. Before he could get to Sai's social awkwardness, he noticed Ahri had finally succumbed to sleep, her breathing deep and even. For a while, he simply watched over her, finding comfort in her presence despite his disembodied state. There was something about Ahri that resonated with him on a level beyond mere friendship. Perhaps it was their shared experience of being vessels for powerful entities, or maybe it was simpler than that, two kindred spirits recognizing each other across the vast gulf of different worlds. You care for her, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Yeah, Naruto admitted readily. She's special. The fox rumbled noncommittally. Just remember our situation is precarious. Attachments may become complicated. When has that ever stopped me before? Naruto replied with his characteristic optimism. We'll figure this out, Kurama. We always do. The fox made no further comment, but Naruto sensed a grudging agreement in his silence. Morning brought renewed activity to the Great Hall. Vastayan scholars arrived with ancient texts and scrolls, poring over them in search of information about the separation ritual. Healers continued to maintain the stabilization runes around Naruto's blade, ensuring his connection remained strong. Ahri awoke to find a simple breakfast waiting beside her cushions: fruits, nuts, and what appeared to be some kind of honey bread. She ate gratefully, realizing how long it had been since her last proper meal. "How are you feeling today?" she asked Naruto between bites. "Better," he replied truthfully. "Whatever they did last night really helped. I feel more anchored, I guess." "Good," Ahri nodded, relief evident in her expression. "The elders have been researching all morning. It sounds like they might have found a modified version of the ritual that could work." Indeed, by midday, the Vastayan scholars presented their findings to Atsuko and the other elders. They had adapted the ancient separation ritual based on Naruto's unique circumstances, replacing some of the more impossible-to-obtain ingredients with viable alternatives. The celestial iron can be substituted with or from the spirit realm, the scholarly Vastaya explained. Our shamans can access it through the proper channels. "And the aspect blood?" Ahri asked, getting to the heart of the matter. The scholar adjusted his spectacles. "That remains problematic. The cosmic energy it provides is essential for anchoring a disembodied soul during transfer. Without it, the ritual would likely fail. So we still need to go to Mount Targan," Naruto concluded. Atsuko nodded gravely. "It appears so. However, we can gather the other components while preparations are made for that journey." The Vastayan community mobilized with impressive efficiency. Teams were dispatched to gather the rare herbs and magical components needed for the ritual. Craftsmen began constructing a specialized ritual chamber within the Great Hall, carving intricate runes into stone and wood based on the scholar's specifications. During the days that followed, Naruto continued to recover his strength. The stabilization runes allowed him to maintain better control of the blade, and he even began practicing limited transformations, altering the blade's size and shape through focused will. Ahri remained by his side throughout, serving as his hands and voice when needed. Their bond deepened through long conversations and shared experiences with the Vastayan tribe. She introduced him to Vastayan customs and history, while he told her more about his world and the adventures he'd had there. On the third evening, as they watched the sunset from a high platform in the great tree, Ahri broached a subject she'd been avoiding. "The journey to Mount Targan will be dangerous," she said, her tail swishing nervously behind her. "Especially for someone in your condition." "I've faced worse odds," Naruto replied confidently. "I know you have," Ahri smiled briefly before growing serious again. "But there's something you should know about aspects. They're not just powerful, they're judgmental. Particularly toward anything related to the Darkin." "Because of the wars?" "Yes. The aspects were instrumental in ending the Darkin threat and imprisoning them in their weapons. If they sense Aatrox's presence within you, they might try to destroy me instead of help," Naruto finished for her. "I figured as much. We could look for another solution," Ahri suggested, though they both knew alternatives were limited. Naruto's markings pulsed with determination. "No. This is our best shot. Besides, I'm pretty good at changing people's minds. Even stubborn, powerful ones." He would have grinned if he could. "Just ask Kurama." Within their shared space, the fox snorted. "You were annoyingly persistent, I'll give you that." Ahri laughed softly at their interaction. "You two really are like old partners." "We are," Naruto confirmed. "It took years, but eventually we figured out we're stronger together than apart." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. Below, the Vastayan enclave came alive with evening activities, lights glowing in dwellings, music and singing rising from various gathering spots. "I've never stayed in one place this long," Ahri admitted quietly. "Not since, well, not for many years." "Why not?" Naruto asked. Ahri's tails curled inward slightly, a gesture of discomfort he'd come to recognize. After the incident with the last tribe I lived with, I decided it was safer for everyone if I remained alone. My powers were unstable then. I couldn't always control when or how I took memories. But you can control it now, right? Yes, she nodded. Mostly. There are still temptations. Sometimes. The essence of others calls to something primal in me. She glanced at him apologetically. That's probably more than you wanted to know. Not at all, Naruto assured her. I understand better than most what it's like to have something inside you that others fear. Something that sometimes feels like it could take over if you let your guard down. Ahri smiled gratefully at his understanding. You know, when we first met, I never imagined we'd end up here. A Vastaya and a ninja from another world trapped in a Darkin blade, it sounds like one of those ridiculous stories human bards make up. The best adventures usually do, Naruto replied cheerfully. And this one's far from over. The following morning brought unexpected news. One of the Vastayan scouts returned with reports of increased Noxian activity in the region. They're establishing checkpoints on all major roads, the scout informed Atsuko. And their mages are using tracking spells, likely searching for the Darkin weapon. Swain is persistent, Ahri commented grimly. He won't give up easily now that he knows what Naruto is. Atsuko considered this information carefully. This complicates your journey to Mount Targan. The direct route would take you straight through Noxian-controlled territory. Is there another way? Naruto asked. The elder Vastaya exchanged glances with her advisors before responding. There is an ancient pathway through the spirit realm. It can bypass physical distances, allowing travelers to emerge closer to their destination. That sounds perfect, Naruto said eagerly. What's the catch? It's perilous for those untrained in spirit walking, Atsuko cautioned. And in your case, with 3 souls bound to one vessel, the risks are considerable. The spirit realm might attempt to separate you permanently. Oh, Naruto's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. That would be bad. Indeed, Atsuko agreed dryly. However, we could prepare protective measures. Spirit-binding charms, essence anchors, methods to ensure you remain intact during the journey. And I'll be with him, Ahri added firmly. My Vastayan nature gives me some advantage in the spirit realm. The preparations for this spiritual journey took another full day. Vastayan craftsmen created special charms designed to keep Naruto's essence bound together, while shamans performed rituals to mark a safe passage through the shifting landscapes of the spirit realm. By nightfall, everything was ready. The Vastaya gathered in the great hall to witness the departure. A circular area had been prepared with spirit runes that glowed with soft blue light, marking the gateway between realms. The journey will take you as far as the foothills of Mount Targan, Atsuko explained. From there, you must climb physically to reach the aspects. How will we know which aspect to approach? Ahri asked, securing the last of their supplies, food, water, and magical implements that might prove useful. The aspect of the protector, Tarik, is said to be the most approachable, one of the scholars suggested. He values life in all its forms and might be more sympathetic to your situation. And if he's not? Naruto asked. The scholar hesitated. Then pray you do not encounter Pantheon, the aspect of war. He, above all others, despises the Darkin. Noted, Naruto replied dryly. Avoid angry war god, find friendly protection guy. Shouldn't be too hard. The time came for their departure. Ahri stood in the center of the spirit circle, Naruto's blade secured to her back with special bindings that maintained his connection to the protective runes. Remember, Atsuko instructed solemnly, the spirit realm responds to emotion and intent. Stay focused on your destination. Do not allow yourselves to be distracted by what you may see or hear. We'll be careful, Ahri promised, her expression determined. The Vastayan shamans began their chant, the spirit circle glowing brighter with each syllable. The air within the circle shimmered, reality itself seeming to thin. "Good luck, Blade-bound one," Atsuko called to Naruto. "May you find what you seek on Targan's Peak." "Thank you," Naruto replied sincerely. "For everything you've done to help us." As the chant reached its crescendo, the spirit circle flared with blinding light. When it faded, Ahri and Naruto had vanished, leaving only faint traces of magic dancing in the air. They emerged in a world both familiar and utterly alien. The spirit realm resembled Runeterra in broad strokes. There were trees, mountains, and sky, but everything was suffused with an otherworldly quality. Colors were more vivid, sounds more resonant, and the very air seemed alive with possibility. Ahri oriented herself, her Vastaean senses attuned to this realm. "This way," she pointed toward a path that glowed faintly with blue light, the trail the shamans had marked for them. As they traveled through the spirit realm, Naruto experienced the strange sensation of being more solid than he had been since arriving in Runeterra. Here, the distinction between physical blade and spiritual essence was less defined. He could almost feel phantom limbs, a ghost of his human form. "This place is amazing," he commented, his voice coming directly from the blade rather than through the essence orb. "It feels freer somehow." "The spirit realm exists between states of being," Ahri explained as she navigated the marked path. "Physical laws hold less sway here." Their journey took them through landscapes that shifted and changed, forests where the trees whispered forgotten stories, meadows where flowers bloomed with memories instead of petals, and rivers that flowed with time itself rather than water. Occasionally, they encountered other spirits, some benevolent, others merely curious about these strange travelers. Most gave them wide berth, particularly when they sensed the complex energies surrounding Naruto. They had been traveling for what felt like hours when Ahri suddenly stopped, her ears swiveling alertly. "Something's following us," she whispered, her tails bristling. Naruto extended his senses, feeling a presence lurking just beyond perception, something ancient and hungry. "I feel it too," he confirmed. "Not friendly." "Spirit predators," Ahri explained tensely. "They hunt essence, particularly from outsiders like us. We need to move faster." They quickened their pace, but the presence kept pace, gradually drawing closer. Ahri's expression grew increasingly concerned as she sensed not one follower, but many, circling around them. "They're hurting us," she realized. "Cutting off our path." Sure enough, the blue trail ahead suddenly vanished, replaced by a murky darkness that spread across their route like spilled ink. "We'll have to find another way," Naruto decided. "Can we go around?" Before Ahri could answer, the darkness ahead coalesced into tangible shapes, spectral creatures with too many limbs and eyes that glowed with hunger. They moved with unnatural speed, surrounding the travelers in moments. "Spirit leeches," Ahri hissed, her hands beginning to glow with charm magic. "They feed on spiritual essence." "Which we have plenty of," Naruto noted grimly. "Great." The creatures attacked as one, launching themselves toward Ahri and Naruto with distorted shrieks. Ahri countered with blasts of foxfire, the ethereal flames particularly effective in this realm. Naruto, meanwhile, found that his blade form could damage the spirits directly, slicing through their spectral bodies with surprising effectiveness. But for every leech they dispatched, more appeared, drawn by the power they sensed. Ahri was tiring, her movements slowing as she continuously channeled her magic. "There's too many," she panted, backing closer to Naruto. "We need a new plan." Within the blade, Naruto felt Kurama stirring. "Kit, let me take the lead," the fox suggested. "My chakra has something went wrong with this response, please try again." Please continue to the next chapter. Chapter 3, The Mountain's Judgment Setting. Mount Targan. The arduous journey to Mount Targan tests both Naruto and Ahri as they face harsh conditions and magical barriers. Their relationship continues to strengthen, with Ahri helping Naruto resist when the blade's influence grows stronger. They encounter Taric, the aspect of the protector, who warns that Pantheon, the aspect of war, has sworn to destroy any Darkin. As they ascend despite the warning, Naruto experiences vivid visions of Aatrox's past, his noble origins and tragic fall. In an ancient temple near the summit, they discover murals depicting the Darkin Wars and a ritual chamber that offers the possibility of separating Naruto from the blade. As they prepare the ritual, Pantheon arrives, unleashing the full power of the celestial aspect in his determination to end the Darkin threat. Pushed to his limits, Naruto risks fully embracing the Darkin's power to protect Ahri. In the cosmic struggle, he confronts the original consciousness of Aatrox still lingering in the blade. Through their internal battle, Naruto's unwavering spirit and Kurama's ancient wisdom convince the remnant of Aatrox to let go of his hatred. The combined will of Naruto and Kurama purifies the Darkin corruption, transforming the blade into something new. Naruto emerges not as a traditional Darkin but as something unique, a balanced fusion of human, fox spirit, and ascended power. Astonished by this unprecedented transformation, Pantheon offers a reluctant truce. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.